So, my name is Slaby. I'm from Germany, from Heidelberg. I graduated from Heidelberg in 2006, and I wrote my master thesis of the Parliament of the World's Religions. That's always why it gives me goosebumps just being in this place at the Parliament of the World's Religions, because I have studied this for several years. I know what kind of historic legacy it really has. So the first Parliament of the World's Religions took place in 1893, and that was the beginning of the interfaith movement as we know it. It was the first encounter of people of different religions in an international scheme in modern history. It was mainly Christians from different denominations that took part, that organized the parliament as part of the World Exhibition in Chicago in 1893, and people from leaders from Eastern religions, mainly from Hinduism and Buddhism, participated and presented their religions. And it was some really amazing encounters that happened. It was mainly very young leaders from the Eastern religions that participated. They were in their late 20s, early 30s. People like Swami Vivekananda or like Shaku Suen from Japan, who was a Zen Buddhist. They introduced their faith and their religions, their spirituality. Back then, the Christians mostly talked about religion as the common denominator, but then the people from the East came and presented their spirituality. And as everything was happening in a colonial and imperial setting, as 1893 was the time when mostly European countries were colonizing the whole world, and also the United States was embarking on this enterprise with the Philippines, for example. The Indian representatives and the Eastern representatives came from colonized countries, and they actually brought in their spirituality as a way of countering materialism in the West. So that they said, well, you might be technologically advanced, you may be militarily advanced, but we have spirituality that you don't have, and we have spiritual power, and so we're countering your materialistic lifestyle with our spirituality. And that's had some very good traction at the parliament. People were amazed that those Eastern representatives were so fluent in English and really could take up those discourses that were happening, and could take up the topics of the time. Sometimes they were even taking the American dream and turn it around and said, well, you're talking about freedom, where's our freedom? Our people are submerged to colonialism, our goods are exploited, our countries, our nature is exploited, so how much freedom do we get? Talking about these dialogues that emerged and those encounters that emerged, I was talking about Shaku Suen, the Zen Buddhist. He had a very intimate connection to Paul Corus, who was writing at the time on the connection between science and religion, and they had such a deep connection that actually Shaku Suen sent his major disciple to work with Paul Corus. Paul Corus again was so amazed about learning about the Eastern traditions that he opened a printing house, the Corus Printing Foundation it was called, and he was actually gathering the writings of the Buddha and of other leaders and of Hinduism, and he was gathering them, printing them, and he got the help of the major disciple of Shaku Suen, who in turn, after 10 years of working with Paul Corus, translating Western philosophers, translating Emerson, translating Thoreau again back into Japanese language, he used this knowledge of Western philosophy to actually write about Zen Buddhism in the Western world. And so he became known as the most famous writer about Zen Buddhism in the West. His name was Daisaku Suzuki, who well, really was starting the Zen movement in the Western world. And the same holds true for Swami Vivekananda, who started as a very young monk, coming to the parliament. He early on said, well, I have nothing to lose. I'm a young monk just traveling the country in India. I could very well go to America and show them that we have an ancient, actually centuries old, yeah, thousands old history and legacy of, well, a spiritual history. He said, well, actually India is almost the mother of all religions, of spiritualities, and he did such a good job that so many people really were interested into his religions. He was talking about Advaita Vedanta, so this mystic Hinduism that he was promoting. So a lot of mystic Westerners and, well, New Age esoteric Westerners were already working on these issues and were adopting these ideas. So the whole yoga movement was started, the whole Advaita non-dualistic movement was started, building on the history and the legacy of Vivekananda.